Hello, and thanks for joining me for another church visit. This time I'm going a bit further north. I'm at St Mark's, Brithdir, near Dolgethley, which is a church in the care of the Friends of Friendless Churches. I didn't do a lot of research before I came round here. I wanted just to record my impressions of the church. There's a bit of an echo in the church, and I say amazing all the time. This is the back of the door I just entered. That's no ordinary door, and this is no ordinary church. This is St Mark's, Brithdir, and it's an arts and crafts masterpiece. Let me take you round. Here we have extraordinarily bold architecture with a hint of the Mediterranean. Extraordinary sculpture and carving and woodwork and metalwork. It's amazing. I don't know if you can make it out, but behind the font is a larger rectangle just visible against the rest of the wall, and that's the foundation stone. The foundation stone with the Lion of St Mark says, "To the glory of God and to the beloved memory of Charles Tooth, priest, M.A., this stone was laid October the 10th, 1895. Charles Tooth was the husband, although for only 4 months before he died, of the lady who decided to build this church in his memory. More about the Tooths later. This is the pulpit, an amazing glittering tub of copper. Beaten copper with grapes, and running around the bottom, a Latin phrase, which I can't quite make out at the moment. The Richards family, if you hadn't guessed, were high church. Louisa Richards married Charles Tooth when they were both getting on a bit and had both been married before. Charles Tooth had set up St Mark's in Florence, a high Anglican church and a haven for Anglo-Catholics. And this is in some way a little reproduction of that very church. Not quite the same, but having the same sort of feel. Louisa had a lot of money, and she threw quite a lot of it at this building, in memory of a man she'd only been married to for an incredibly short time. Before we look at the chancel, let's look back at the nave. Those huge fortress-like walls, the windows flooding in light, yet not very big, and that amazing, simple but strong roof and the flat ceiling. Henry Wilson, the architect, said he got his influence from Alpine churches. I can kind of see that, and it certainly is un-Welsh, shall we say. The choir stalls are amazingly carved. SM for St Mark's. And here we have a tortoise and a rabbit and a squirrel. The choir is much, much darker. Terracotta walls and the celestial blue ceiling. And through this passage, more plain glazed windows. space somewhat ruined by the later organ. Ruined as far as the architect would have been concerned anyway. On the other side, we have a gallery with a window glazed with a cross and a heart. The original organ, apparently, according to the Pevsner, was a vocalion belonging to Arthur Tooth's church. That's Charles Tooth's brother. They were both priests. Apparently it didn't work, and so was replaced after Louisa Tooth's death by this one. At no point during the filming of this video have I put the lights on here. I think the gloom is intentional, and I think it shows off and acts as a marvellous foil to this, surely the centrepiece of the whole design. The altar frontal shows the Annunciation. There's the Holy Spirit coming in to the Virgin Mary, a childlike angel kneeling before her. And we have the name of Charles Tooth, priest, at the top. And in Latin, Ave gratia plena Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus. This was given in memory of Charles Tooth by his brother Arthur. Arthur was a somewhat notorious Anglo-Catholic priest who wound up in prison for ritualism. He was an Anglo-Catholic martyr. He wasn't in prison very long, and it was technically for contempt of court, but he was prosecuted under the Public Worship Regulation Act for using prescribed liturgical practices. By the time this church was built, that was all a long time ago, but he never became a parish priest again, and he founded an orphanage and convent, and there he stayed, quietly minding his own business. This fairly standard reading desk would look perfectly all right in any other church, although the orientation's a bit weird. Presumably it was put here by some later incumbent who felt the need for one. But in this solid Mediterranean feeling space, it just seems fussy and odd. This is really not your average church, is it? The distinction between the sanctuary and the nave is actually one of the starkest I've ever come across. The architecture is uniform, and the windows are similar, and we have the same sort of arches, but this end, there's a feeling of intimacy and gloom. Really needs clouds of incense. It has that feel about it, that holy feel. We have the plastered ceiling, and then back to the nave with its rather rough beams, its plain chairs, its ochre walls. Definitely a clear division made without any use of a real chancel arch or a rood screen. Just the materials and the colour that delineate the two spaces. And even though the interior is plastered, this wonderfully tooled, massively scaled stone still allowed to speak and take its place within the building. The Pevsner for Gwynedd says, the most complete set of high-quality arts and crafts work in Wales and one of the best in Britain. And who would disagree with that? The monumental scale of the building is tempered by the little details. The interior of this church is so remarkable, It's almost possible to forget it has an exterior, which, although it doesn't have that kind of flash that the interior has, is still remarkable. The stone is weighty. The whole thing seems to have a vast amount of gravity. It's monumental, and it's bold, and it's strong, and it fits its landscape perfectly. We're near Cadair Idris. It's mountainous land, and this is a mountain of a church. St Mark's Brithdir is a Grade 1 listed building, and rightly so. The Friends of Friendless Churches describe it as an arts and crafts jewel box, and it certainly is. If you have a chance to visit, I strongly recommend that you do. It's always open, and there's really nothing else like it. I hope you enjoyed this tour, and as always, thank you for watching.